Hello and a warm welcome to the Next Gen Racing YouTube channel for our weekend preview. And I've already mentioned it once in our special anti-post video, but the flat is finally here. We've got the Doncaster Lincoln meeting 2 days, Saturday and Sunday from Doncaster. We're going to be previewing 4 races on Saturday on the ITV card. Jack, I've already kind of asked you the question, but the flat season's here. Doncaster, this is the real start of the turf season, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I'm really looking forward to it. The Brocklesby is always a race that I love getting stuck into, and the Lincoln as well. Never find the winner of the Lincoln, but hopefully this year it's going to change.
Absolutely, yeah. So like I say, 4 races that we're going to be previewing. We start off with the Brocklesby, which is at 150. This is over 5 furlongs, and Valadero is the 15-8 favourite for Ammo Racing's team. Loaded Gun is 9-2. Indication Course 6-1. Sankari 12-1. Old Chums is 14-1. 16-1, and bigger about the rest of them. Jack, it's really interesting here because look, all of these haven't had a run, so we're kind of playing a guessing game on breeding, whether they're going to enjoy the conditions, form of the trainers, jockey, etc. But this was won last year by a very exciting horse in Persian Force, who went on to be a very creditable performer in all group races at the 2-year-old level. What do we make of this one here? Do we think the favourite is probably just worthy favourite on the basis of is Ammo Racing once again?
I think he's going to be chronically overbet, because of his connections and because of how much they paid for him. I think he's going to open the market up to a lot of each way value. I think the value's already gone. He opened up at 4-1 on Thursday about midday, and he's now, 6-4, 7-4? He's a very, very short price, as expected when you look at connections. But I think, look, you have to take him on. He could go and win, but if he wins at 6-4, I think it's one of those where you try and find second or third. I was looking through it, trying to find something with a soft ground pedigree, but also related to a decent amount of decent juveniles. And I came upon 2. The first is the one who's already been gelded, which I think is going to put a lot of people off, and that's Part-Time Britain at 18-1 for David Evans. He's a half-brother to Don Chico, who won on Racehorse Debut and also won the Grand Criterium at Campanelle, which is a Group 2, sorry. Goodness me, still stuck in National Hunt mode. On soft ground. His dam's a half-sister to Kairat, who was a decent juvenile, was 2 out of 3 as a 2-year-old, and probably should have made that 3 out of 3. He's by Massat, who was second in the 2,000 guineas to the Havana Gold on good to soft, and he won the Hungerford on soft ground. I think people will be put off because he's gelded already, and he's trained by David Evans, and I think 18-1, he actually could surprise a few people. And the other one is Sankari. I think he's about 12-1 at the moment, but his dam recorded a career best performance on ratings over 5 furlongs on soft ground. She's a half-sister to Jose Echeverry, who won on his 3rd start at Sligo on heavy ground. Shaden's also in the family, who won a Group 2 on very soft ground in France, and even King of Kings is in the family, who won the National Stakes on soft ground and also the 2,000 guineas on good to soft. So I think Sankari and Part-Time Britain, they're 18-1 and 12-1 respectively, and hopefully they'll be able to toss it up to old Valadero.
Jack starting the season off with some nice prices, and that's exactly what I'm not going to do. Look, it's not going to be a race that I'm going to bet big in. Of course I'm not. It's a 2-year-old race on soft ground. Well, we don't know anything about much of these runners, but I think Valadero is probably just going to go and win this. Now, Dominic French-Davis trained 3 in here. At the start of the week, we saw 3 entries for Ammo Racing. First of all, it's great to see Dominic French-Davis have some really exciting horses this season. It'd be nice to see him have some good 2-year-olds, but this will see Valadero is obviously the pick of the bunch by the speedy Star Spangled Banner, and out of a mare who absolutely loved soft conditions, so I can see this being no issue. I actually mentioned on our anti-post bet show, good time to plug that, go check that out. That came out yesterday, so you can go and give that a watch. But I mentioned how a massive booking Kevin Stott is for the Ammo Racing team. He really is a talented jockey, and the Ammo Racing team have already been on fire this season. They had an exciting 2-year-old winner over in Ireland last week at the Curragh in Bucanero Fuerte, who looked very impressive. I'm looking forward to seeing him step up in trip, actually. He looks like a proper horse. But Valadero, it's not an original selection, don't get me wrong. He's not a great price, but I think he'd probably be my pick of the horses here. So there we go. I'll give you the favourite and Jack will give you 2 at nice prices. I do
How can
apologise.
you do that? It's the Brocklesby, and you've just
I
gone with
know.
Ammo. It's disgusting.
Right. Back Ammo Racing blind, as some people may say. Let's move on to the 225 then. This here is the Potemps Network Spring Mile Handicap over a mile. Kind of basically this is the kind of Lincoln consolation, isn't it? And Baltimore Boy is the 15-2 favourite. Isla Kai is 8-1. Arthur's Realm, Broken Spear, the Gatekeeper, Zosimus, they're all 10-1. Dirty Old Town 12-1. Hartswell Duke 14-1. And around that and bigger the rest. Now, Jack, I probably have to start here, don't I? Because I probably
100%.
deserve to start here because I think it was at the start of February I looked at the entries for the Lincoln and I gave one horse a massive shout. And this is for the Lincoln, this isn't for this race. And it was a horse called Zosimus, trained by David O'Mara. And it is such a shame that this horse has narrowly missed out on actually running in the big one. I am excited to see this horse. I do think he's going to be a horse to be on the right side of all season. I think he could be very good. But Zosimus is the one in here. I'm going to have to be him. He's going to be carrying obviously more weight due to the race, but it's not as high a class a race this. And I'm just excited by David O'Mara runners that he gets from trainers. We had it last year with Darkness, who came over, didn't quite run the race in the Lincoln, but was well gambled that day. David O'Mara won the Lincoln with Bravery from Aidan O'Brien's stable, and he's taken this one here from Donnacha O'Brien. Now, like I say, horses first time up for O'Mara do run really well, and this horse had some good form. He actually ran fourth in a Cambridgeshire for Donnacha O'Brien, a massive prize, 100 to 1. He was on the far side and actually won the group. If you go back and watch that Cambridgeshire, he won that side's group. He just unfortunately wasn't on the right side. The stand side were, I looked back at it, and stand side were winning everything that day. I actually spoke to Martin Dixon, who obviously is one of the guys involved with the Horse Watchers, who they're very shrewd with their purchases, and he did mention to me that this horse potentially could need a run, but I just think this horse could be far better than a 92 rated horse. I can see David O'Mara really getting a lot more out of this. I'm so sorry that he didn't get in. I won't lie, I had a good anti-post bet around 70s, 60s, punted down to 40s for the Lincoln, and just narrowly missed out. But I'm very excited by this horse. He gets further than a mile, which is something that I say is key at the start of the season. You want a horse that can probably get a little bit further than what the trip is registered as. And look, he gets 9-10 furlongs, so even if he's not fully fit, he could still be getting this trip fairly well. I think he could be a cracking bet around 10 to 1. I can't give up on him. I have to back him. It's Zosimus for me in the Spring Mile. Sorry, Jack, I had to give him a mention. It's such a shame he's not in the Lincoln, but look, it is what it is.
No, it made me laugh looking at this race because at the beginning of the week you were going, should we really bother with the Spring Mile? Because I quite liked Uzo, who was entered at the time, and obviously you didn't really like anything, and the tables were completely turned because, of course, your beloved Zosimus was declared, and I was thinking, oh no, Uzo wasn't even entered at the 6-day stage. So no, it was a bit of a tricky one. It's a very tricky race, isn't it? Look, I won't be having a bet. If I was going to, it'd probably be Broken Spear, 5th in the Lincoln last year off 86, now running in this off 82. You can completely forget his run at Newcastle last time out. He's over 6 furlongs, clearly blowing off the cobwebs and readiness for this. He was second to Zip at Doncaster in testing conditions. Zip's now rated 90. They pulled 5.5 lengths clear of third that day. His record at Doncaster in these big handicaps is good. Billy Lochnane's on board. You don't need to say too much about him, and he's a good each way price at about 10 to 1. So Broken Spear for me.
Yeah, it wasn't long until Billy Lochnane's name was mentioned already in the flat turf season. A very, very exciting young jockey who's absolutely dominating the all-weather in 2023. So Broken Spear for Jack and Zosimus for me in the Spring Mile. Now let's move on to the 3 o'clock, which is the Camish Trophy Stakes. This is a listed race, class 1 over 6 furlongs, and El Caballo is 5-2 favourite. Comanche Falls 4-1. Asjad 6-1. King's Lynn 13-2. Eraz 9-1. Looking at double figures about the rest of them. Jack, I'll start with you. El Caballo is a horse who showed a lot of ability before kind of flopping in the Commonwealth Cup last season at Royal Ascot. We haven't seen him since then, but he could potentially be just an excellent sprinter to be on the right side of this season.
Yeah, 100% he could be, but I mean, you look at this race and you think, goodness me, what are you doing in this race to a few of them? King's Lynn was unlucky, I suppose you could say, in the King's Stand not so long ago. You've got Eraz, who was obviously third in the Commonwealth Cup. You've got so many here who've contested in Group 1s, and they're running in the Camish Trophy, and you think, what on earth are you doing here? But I just think the race could fall apart, and I kind of want something to be able to stay. I think King's Lynn's definitely got to be up there. Of course, in that King's Stand, they went off like a rocket pace when Oxted won it, and I think he's obviously going to stay a little bit further than that. But I'm actually going to go for one in here. You're not going to like me for this. I'm going to go for Vadream at 18 to 1.
No.
I know.
Cliff horses have already begun.
I know, but I'd say this is a pick which isn't on a Cliff horse kind of rating. I know she is a Cliff horse to me, but I just think if the ground's as attritional as the weather suggests, as it could be at this time, I really wouldn't give up on Vadream. I always thought she really wanted soft ground. She was third in the Jersey behind Creative Force and Naval Crown, then beat King's Lynn in the Bengoff after that, was 5th in the Champion Sprint that year. She showed absolutely nothing last year until finishing third at Chantilly on soft ground. Again, it was a relatively mediocre group race. But I don't think she's necessarily speedy. But I think if you want one that will be able to pick up the pieces if they go off at a good clip, I think King's Lynn's one, but Vadream's the other, who's definitely forgotten about. I think she does want soft ground. She's 18-1.
There you go, 18-1 about Vadream there. I did just look into the form. Fair play to you. You do make a good case, and she could actually land a big race. It could come. And if it is to come with a horse like that, it usually would be towards the start of the season. I've actually landed on one at a fair price as well. I've landed on Fast Response here for the Nick Bradley Racing Team. Excited for them this season, actually, with their exciting 3-year-old Marshman, who I was a big fan of as a 2-year-old last year. But Fast Response is a very consistent horse. Look at his last 5 runs, 3 wins and 1 place in his last 5 starts. He's a course and distance winner who should absolutely relish the soft conditions. That's the key thing this weekend. Is it's definitely going to be on the soft side. If not, it could be heavy. Like there is rain coming down at Doncaster. That's all I know. He actually beat Tarib and Art Power on his last start, and that was in a listed race here at Doncaster. That was where he won, where he was winning it in November. And Art Power and Tarib, look, if they were in here, especially if we were talking a season back, they would have been very short, you'd imagine. They're very talented sprinters on their days. So I think that's worked out to be very good form. King's Lynn will love the conditions. I worry a little bit whether he's just getting on a little bit. I'd wait until York comes around with regards to Comanche Falls. You know he's going to win this season. It's most likely going to come at York. El Caballo, look, this could be a bit of a good tool. He looked a very good tool before the Commonwealth Cup, didn't he? But I mean, he beat the likes of Flaming Rib, Wings of War, Gomez Go, Couture at Haydock in May. So you just never know kind of how good he could be, but could be very strong. And I think Tactical would be interesting if you're looking on at a price. He's a very fascinating one. If coming back to that form that he showed as a 2-year-old especially, we haven't really seen that quite since. But he's now switched to the Camacho stable, which I think could be really fascinating. Jack, you're nodding your head there is almost like he could be a bit of a worry in here.
Yeah, 100%. I think the change of connections and change of trainer as well, I think he could definitely be overlooked. He doesn't have that very aesthetically pleasing King's colours on now. So I do think he is one who could definitely be overlooked.
Absolutely. Let's move on then to the big one, shall we? The Pertemps Network Lincoln 3:35 at Doncaster, over a mile. Class 2 event, and now Alma Beer has been well backed. 4-1 favourite in here. Awal's 11-2, Wanice is 17-2, Barrador's 9-1, Atrium 12-1, Majestic's also 12, along with Montasib and 14-1, and bigger about the rest of them in here. Jack, how many selections have you got in here?
I've got a couple.
Okay, yeah, I've got a couple as well. I'll let you kick things off with your, let's say the one that you're most hopeful of.
I'd say it would probably be Migration off top weight. I think, I mean, a bit of money's been come from now. He was 25-1 early in the day. His best price 16-1 now off top weight. I think in this ground he does have to have a chance. Johan won this last year off 102 with Benoit de la Salle as claim on board. You know how useful Benoit is in these big handicaps. When he won it a couple of years ago on Hekiki, he's off pretty much 104, so £2 higher than Johan. He had this long break from 2019 to 2021, and even though he's had 17 runs, I can't help but think he's still a little bit unexposed, which is weird saying that about a horse who's 7 years old and had 17 runs. But I just think he's still a little bit unexposed because he had that gap from 2019 to 2021 and came back a completely changed horse. I mean, he hacked up on heavy ground at Goodwood over a mile and a quarter, beating Caradoc. I think it was by 3 lengths. Then finished second to Modern News at Newbury on good ground. He finished his year with a relatively disappointing fourth, I thought, behind Ottoman Fleet last year. But he goes well fresh. He'll like the ground. And he's a good price at 16-1. I don't see too many downsides here. If the race falls apart, he's got Benoit on board. I mean, I think he does have the opportunity to go really close here. He's a little bit overlooked because he's carrying so much weight. But Johan showed last year that's not too much of an issue. And I think Migration could go quite close here.
There you go, Migration, top weight in a Lincoln. But yeah, like Jack say, he'll be relishing the conditions. And Benoit de la Salle, top man. Still can't believe he's a £3 claim. He's stealing that at the moment, but I'm not sure he's going to be on that for too long. I'll go with my first selection, which is going to be a horse that we may agree on. But I like Bo Pedro. I think he's far too big a price at about 20-1. Look, if your O'Mara Lincoln fancy doesn't run, just go with the other one, I suppose. His last run was at Doncaster in October, where he ran a staying on second over 7 furlongs to a horse called Totally Charming, who actually ran a big race in the Irish Lincolnshire last weekend. They were off the same weight that day in that race at Doncaster, and if you ran that over a mile, Bo Pedro would have been a lot closer. I'm not saying he would have won it, but he would definitely been a lot closer. It was heavy ground that day, and this horse will absolutely relish the conditions. This cut in the ground is going to be ideal for him. He's a horse who's had one season with O'Mara already after joining from Jessica Harrington. I usually like horses first time up for O'Mara, but I wouldn't mind this at all because O'Mara does have a good record in this race. I think he's got plenty of improvement in him, Bo Pedro. I still think there's a little bit more to come. And obviously, look, he had Zosimus in here. He had a couple. He had Darkness in it. I know that was well down the weights last year's fancy. But I think Bo Pedro, 20-1, I think could be far too big. Jack, I know you are in slight agreement with that. Is that your second selection?
Yeah, I am in agreement with Bo Pedro, to be fair. I think it's a really interesting race. Baradar was one that definitely caught the eye, of course, third in the Verton Futurity and horrible ground when Max Sweeney won it as a 2-year-old. But look, there's a lot you can make a case for at the top of the market as well. Can't be back in Elmer Beer. Not a chance at 7-2. I think the Doyler has a chance as well. But again, you're looking at about 5-1 for the top of the market. So I think you have to look for a bit of value. And Toshisu is the other one who I'm going to go for again for the Nick Bradley team, who's come over from Ireland. But I was looking at his last run back at Leopardstown, over a mile, finished fifth off a mark of 96. He's now off 94. And he looked like he got to the front a little bit too soon. It kind of looked like the finishers came from the back of the field, but I still thought he stuck his neck out in good style. And then he was second on his penultimate run at Limerick. That was on good ground. And goodness me, I mean, he was denied a clear run. He was travelling an absolute dream, but I mean, he was left way too much to do. I wouldn't be surprised if he does take a big step forward. He's still unexposed on soft ground. His Damn Remember You won on her second start on soft ground, and also he's closely related to Southern Hills, who won the Windsor Castle on soft ground, beating Platinum Star back in 2019. So I don't think the soft ground's going to be too much of an issue. He's 28-1. I know the Nick Bradley team have said they want to take this kind of as a stepping stone and go on from there, but I think he again could run a decent race. So Toshisu at 28-1 and Migration at 16-1 will be my two darts in the first big handicap of the flat season.
There you go. You love to hear it. And I find it interesting, the whole thing of like a stepping stone, this race. But surely for a lot of these horses right at the start of the season, it's going to be a stepping stone, isn't it, into bigger things?
It's an interesting one as well, because the likes of Toshisu and, of course, Zosimus, there's a lot of unknowns there. Of course, these operations can be very shrewd and they know exactly kind of what they have in the yard. But there's a lot that can surprise you. The change of scenery and whatnot, the change of competition coming over from Ireland. Who knows?
Yeah, the early season targets and all that, there's not really a choice in early season. It's the first day target, basically, of the flat season. I mean, my other selection here is actually a Haggis Fancy, but it's not the one at the top of the market. It's Montasib, I think could be a fair price. Now, they have the market leader of Alma Beer. Jack said plenty about this, saying this horse could be too short. The weird thing about this race is Billy Loughnane does not have a ride in it. Can you imagine what price this could be if Haggis had put an eye-catching booking like him on board? Imagine it could be going off like 5-2, 2-1. But they've still got the King of Doncaster on Alma Beer. But I just think that there's too much of a bigger gap in price between the Haggis runners. And looking at what Haggis starts the season, he won the Irish Lincolnshire, of course he did. He's had horses running extremely well down under as well. He's even got Purple Payout there, who I thought last season would be an excellent three-year-old. Hasn't quite worked out in the UK yet, but who knows, this season we might see a completely different horse. But I just think that we could see Montasib to a good level here. I know he's going to enjoy the ground. I think he's a top-class horse. He was actually second in the old Boston Handicap at Haydock last year on good to soft ground behind Wanese. Now, Wanese went into that race, I think, after a gelding. He was gelded before that race and actually looked like a completely different horse. He could actually be one to watch this year, Wanese. So keep your eye out for him as well in this race. But Montasib kept on really well that day. I think there were some top quality horses in that old Boston race. Aku Najla was one. I think you've got to remember Aku Najla. He looked like a horse who could be really exciting because he was third in a listed race behind Reach for the Moon and My Prospero, who's a very exciting horse. If you want to find out more about My Prospero, do check out the anti-post video because Jack and I say plenty with regards to him. But Kieran Fallon, he's jocked up on board this horse. I think he could be a cracking bet at 12-1 each way. I think there is a fair bit of value in there. Also want to mention another Haggis horse while I'm talking about him is a horse called Girl Racer, who I did tweet about, who won at Wolverhampton the other night. That horse is going for the French 1,000 guineas, apparently. She looked exciting. Do watch the replay of that. But look, Haggis is in fine form. You wouldn't be surprised if we hear the whole group horse in a handicap with Alma Beer, but you've got to take it on. Montasib would be my other one. So my two will be Bo Pedro and Montasib in the Lincoln. We'll get our selections on screen shortly. But before we do, is there anything else that might be worth focusing on, Jack Dorling?
I don't exactly have like a nap of the week elsewhere, but on Sunday at 3 o'clock at Ascot, there's a juvenile handicap hurdle, and I think it's an absolute cracker. I'd say it's the Boodles Part 2. You've got the likes of Affadil, Blue King, Doro, who's of course the favourite for the Grade 2 at Cheltenham back in October, that script rides a run. You've got Bad, who's entered as well. Spirit Donu, one of my eye catchers for Gary Moore, who I think is a very good horse. You've got Mr. Freedom in there as well. It's a really, really good race. It'll be interesting to see who goes and what the ground looks like. But for me at the moment, I think Spirit Donu could be definitely going under the radar there. So if the rain comes, I think Gary Moore could have a big winner at Ascot.
Yeah, things you'll have to hear as well. Gary Moore having big winners at Ascot. If there was kind of a best of your fancies for the whole weekend, Jack, who would probably be the best?
Oh, that's a big question. I'm going to go with Migration in the Lincoln.
Okay, good shout. Well, my best bet of the day doesn't come in the races that we preview. It actually comes in the 5:20 at Doncaster, which is an apprentice handicap. And Crafter for Mark Lochnan here, I think, is a cracking price at 15-2. He's actually never won a race since joining the stable, which is probably not a good way to start my case, but he's only been running on the all-weather. He's actually had 4 runs for the Lochnan yard and dropped down to a mark of 68. I think this has just been a plan all along to get this horse's mark down. Before he joined this yard, Crafter, he was a 3-year-old trained by the master Andre Farb in the colours of Godolphin and won on debut an impressive style on heavy ground at Compiègne. He then went on to run at Chantilly. They dropped him back a furlong there, didn't seem to stay a trip and was beaten by some fair horses. I think the winner ended up to be second in a listed contest in Germany. But after that run, he was switched to Mark Lotnan's yard. They've been running this horse on the all-weather, dropping this horse down to a really attractive mark. Can you imagine if Andre Farb was training in Britain, he was training a 68 rated horse? It just wouldn't happen, would it? I think this horse could be far better than this mark. He's got to be. This is going to be testing conditions over the same trip he won his maiden on for Andre Farb at Compiègne. 15-2 each way. Fill your boots. I think
I like the case, and I
probably should mention the jockey as well. That Billy Lochnan is aboard this horse, so he's obviously not claiming because it's an apprentice handicap, but he is the man to be with at the moment. So Crafter for me in the 5:20 at Doncaster. And there we go. Selections are on screen. You can see those now. Who Jack and I will be putting up as selections this weekend, and they will be tracked as well, and we will kind of put out the results and stuff at the end of each month. I'm sure Jack will be on that for us. But Jack, looking forward to the weekend. I know the weather's probably, it doesn't feel like the flat season because we haven't got any sun out at the moment, but we're slowly getting there. It won't be long until the Guineas.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. Look, we got 2-year-olds coming out. As soon as the Brocklesby starts, the flat season is full steam ahead. There's not as much of a break that we have from Doncaster to the actual kind of main aim of the flat turf season, which is nice. We're going into April rather than March. So yeah, we're looking forward to it.
Yeah, looking forward to it. We've obviously still got Aintree to come, but yeah, the flat is taking over. As always, do like, subscribe, share, get your comments in down below. Let us know who your nap is this week, and let us know how much you're looking forward to the flat season. And you can let us know in the anti-post video any horses that you're going to be following on the flat this season as well. But we will be back next weekend with our weekend preview. There'll be no special video next week, but we'll have our weekend preview next Friday morning. So we will see you then. Thanks for watching.